Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at variables in Python. My name is Mildred. In Python, a variable is like a container for storing values. And when you talk about variables, actually in all programming languages, when you talk about variables, we store values of things that change frequently. You know, when you go to a website or you go to and you are required to create an account, you have a form. Now, the app developers do not know in advance what values they're going to fill into the form fields. Let's say we have first name, middle name, last name, and then we have things like the email address on the form for you to fill in. When you fill, you click create, and there will be a button to create or to save or something like that. The whole thing you see with the form is the front end. Now at the back end, there is something that processes all the information you fill in and then do something with that information. When that form is being processed by that processing script, now in this case Python, it needs to store the values in something we call a variable. Then it will now work on those variables. Because it doesn't know the name in advance or the values of the form field in advance, it stores them in a variable. For instance, let's say I'll create a new file now. I'll call this variables.py. For instance, we have first name, right? I'll put equal to, and now we have a variable called first name as a container. Just collect whatever is filled in the first name field of the form. And so first name is equal to, let's say the person filled the first name, or use my name Mildred, right? So this is a variable, first name. It holds the value Mildred. Or let's say we have a form field that is age. We can now put the variable name age and then the age of the person. Let's say the person filled in age 18. First name is a variable, age is a variable. Now we have something called data type that we'll look at in the next lesson to see the different types of data that the variables can hold. But what you need to understand here is variable name. So one of the rules of naming variables is that you want to make your name descriptive. Now I know that first name variable holds first name information. If I come and say the name of this variable is A, nobody knows that A stores first name information, and any developer you're working with will have a hard time looking through your code, and code maintenance becomes a problem. So you want to try to name your variable so that it has meaningful name. But there are rules for Python in naming variables. Now as we have these variables, you can start with a letter, we can start the name with an underscore, but we cannot start the name of a variable with a number. If I put a number, it puts a red wriggly line to see that a number is not allowed. Then we have reserved words in Python. For instance, let's say we want to print out something. Print means something in Python, and print is a reserved word. So which means that print cannot be a name of a variable because it's a reserved word and it has a special meaning in Python. Alright. Then when we write first name like this, and let's say I have another variable, first name, let's say written in uppercase, it is not the same. This first name written in uppercase and first name written in lowercase, they are not the same. And the reason they are not the same is that variable names are case sensitive. Normally you want to use uppercase to write constant as a convention actually. But if you write your variable name in uppercase and in lowercase, this is not the same as this as long as one case is different. So it is case sensitive, variable names. So once you have all of these rules in your mind, when you name your variables, you want to give descriptive names. You don't want to start the name with a number. The names can contain any letter of the alphabet, numbers and underscores. The name cannot have a space. If you try to put a space here, it puts a line. Okay, variable names will not have a space, and then you want to remember that it is case sensitive. So when you mix your cases like this first name and this first name are not the same variable names. Alright, so let's give an example on how we write Python. Let's say we want to have three variables, first name, last name and age. So I'll write first name is equal to, let's say Jane, last name is equal to Doe, age is equal to 25. We've created three variables, or we'll call them containers, but their names are called variables that store three information. It stores first name, last name and the age. How do we output this information in Python? In Python we use the print statement to output information. When you write print and a pair of parentheses, the parentheses you use a quote to type if I want to say the name of client is, so I'm typing, it must be in quotes like this. But if I want to write a variable now, I have to come out of the quote, put a comma, and now write the variable name that holds the name. So I'll say the name of the client is first name, and when I click the run button here, it just says the name of the client is Jane, because first name holds Jane. And when I change from Jane to John, now when I run this, it writes the name of the client is John. Now we can see the illustration of how variables are very important for you to understand, because in the world of software development, when we create an app and you need users to sign up, you don't know in advance what their names are, so you allow a variable to store whatever the name that is filled in the form field, and you don't know how many people. So has thousands and millions of people who fill that form. It keeps replacing. Every time they hit save, it processes whatever information they put. The script is there for another save, and it keeps replacing the names. And whenever the name changes, the print function still remains, because all you want to do is, I want to get the first name variable, and I don't know what is stored in it. I don't want to know what is stored in it. Just get what is stored in it and do something with it, whether save it in a database or send the person a greeting message or an email. So this is variable. So let's look deeply at all of the ways we can output these variables with the print statement. So we have seen that we can write our variable, we can declare variables like this, but sometimes you find syntax like you put all of the variable names in one line. I want you to know this, so when you see it, you can read other people's code. And let's say last name and age, all in one line, and we'll put equal to, and then you put their values in a line like that. Let's say John, and we have Doe, and we have 25. So this is exactly the same thing as this. We just have a comma separated list of all of the variable names and then all of the values in the order in which we specify them. This is exactly the same, and when I clear here and I run, I have the name of the client is John, which is what I've done here. So you can see how you will see different codes where they wrote one at a time, or you write everything in one line like this. Either way is fine. Some people will just want to reduce the lines of code, and it's important to know the different ways that things can be done so you can read people's code apart from you writing code yourself. So let's go to the print statement. Now I said the name of the client is, and I wanted to print out first name like this. Let's say I want to do something like I want to get the full name of the client. We can say first name plus last name. It gets complicated like this. There is something we call the F string. You put an F just before the quotes like this, and within the quotes here you put a pair of curly braces. Within the curly braces you can now write the variables you want to use. So I want to use first name, last name. So I'll say the name of the client is, I put the first name and the last name. This client is, I'll put age, the variable name, years old. So you see how I can write a statement that I want to print using the F string. The format string here, F, before the quotes, and then within the quotes, every time you want to get the value of a variable, you want to put the variable name in curly braces like this. And when I run, I'll see the statement. The name of the client is John Doe. This client is 25 years old. Now there is no space between. If I put a space here and I run, and then we have a space between, so you put space as you want it there. So this makes it easier. This is the best way to write out your statement when you use the F string. There are many other methods you will see, or many other ways that people write things like this. Let's say we want to use the plus sign, for instance. Let's do that. You see, it gets more complicated. Now if you look at the Zen of Python, it's better you go the easiest route and not the complicated route. So let's say we want to use the plus sign. Let's say the name of the client is, so now we'll say is like this, and we want to now use the plus sign. You use plus, then you write the name of the variable, first name, then you put plus. You want a space, you put a pair of quotes as an empty space, then you put plus, and then you write last name, and then you use plus. You want a space, and then you say plus, you continue your code. This client is, then you now put a plus, and you put age plus space plus years old. So you see how complicated it is to use all the pluses and pluses. Let's run this. I'll clear and run. Okay, so there is into string. So for this age, because we're using a string, we're quoting here, we don't want to use concatenation plus with a number. This is a number, and we're going to look in details at this as we go along when we do casting. So what I will cast now to make this a string from an int. Don't bother about understanding how to cast for now, but this is what we will do in future lessons. So when you want to use a concatenation plus, can't add a string and an integer. And so when I use that, we see that we printed it out. The name of the client is John Doe. This client is 25 years old. Then you want to format. It's neater when you use the F string. So you see how complicated it gets when you want to do other ways. We can even use the format method also. That is also a little complicated. So let's say the name of the client is, then instead of writing the name of the client, we'll put empty curly brace, and then we'll put 2 because we want the first name and the last name, right? So the name of the client is, we put 2 curly brace. This client is old. So we use empty curly brace like this, and then at the end of it we'll put dots format. So that's the format method. Now when we use the format in a pair of parentheses, we want to specify them in the order in which we want the values of the variables to be inserted in this empty curly brace. So we'll say first name, the comma separated list, last name, and age. So this is one way of writing it again. I'll clear so you can see the solution. And so we'll see the name of the client is John Doe. This client is 25 years old. Well, after using the F string, this other method is also nice, but again the F string makes things neater. You can also use the join method also. It just gets more complicated. Instead of format, you use join, and where we use plus, we use join instead. It's just complicated. Or we can use the percent operator. That is one thing you want to see. Like when it's a string, we'll use percent %s. A string here, I'll use percent %s. And this client is, the age is a digit, so we'll use percent %d. So when you do it like this, and then instead of dot format here, you just put percent. I think this is how it should be. Let's save this and look, and let's run it and see. Yeah, so we have percent instead of the curly brace. And so instead of dot format, we replace it with percent sign. So these are several ways we can do the same thing. But like I said earlier, using the F string is just the fastest and the best. You can concatenate things on the fly as you go by just putting the variables in curly brace. Alright, so these are the different ways we can print out statements in Python. We're going to look at other ways we do things as we go along. So thank you, and see you in the next lesson.